Izuku Midoriya, aka Deku, has been gathering a lot of attention lately. In the 5th season's teaser, we saw Midoriya dreaming in the Vestige world, where he saw the previous users of One For All for the first time. He wanted to interact with them but gets stopped by his lack of mouth or even legs, almost as if his quirk wanted him to be nothing more than an observer. The first episode later showed us what exactly happened in Midoriya's dream. The Vestiges formally introduced Midoriya to the first user of One For All, Yoichi Shigaraki, and explains how he gets this very quirk. Wait. Let's back up a bit. The first user's name is Yoichi Shigaraki? As in from Tomura Shigaraki of the League of Villains? Oh, let me explain. You already know that Shigaraki Tomura's real name is Tenko Shimura, the grandson of One For All's 7th user, Nana Shimura. She's also known for being the mentor of All Might. When Tenko became an orphan, All For One, whose last name is Shigaraki, adopted him. And that, my friends, was the beginning of Shigaraki Tomura, the Prince of Evil. Coming back to our topic, Yoichi comes up to Izuku and claims that the young hero is not ready yet, which is followed by Deku waking up from the weird dream. The first user doesn't tell us more about the thing that Izuku isn't yet ready for. Although, it makes sense because Midoriya can only access about 20% of One For All. But this does lead to a massive turn of events. The mystery about One For All has only gotten bigger since Midoriya's dream. Anime fans found out in episode 98 that the quirkless boy wonder Midoriya not only has One For All, but an additional quirk called Black Whip. And that's not even the craziest part. The quirk belongs to Daigoro Banjo, the 5th user. He pulls Midoriya into the Vestige world back again later in the episode. Banjo then tells Deku that he would receive all 7 quirks of the previous One For All users. If you got hyped up after watching that episode, let me tell you this is nothing compared to how much progress has been made in the manga. What's up everyone, I'm MC Sid from Epic Dope. I was catching up on My Hero Academia's 5th season 2 days back and decided to talk about Midoriya's multiple quirks and the ever mysterious Vestige world. First off, there will be many spoilers starting from the current events of the anime up to the latest chapter of the manga, so consider yourself warned. But there is no need to jump out of your seats. I will keep the spoilers about the fights from the Paranormal Liberation War arc to a minimum. This video will be divided into 3 parts: Vestige world and the origins of One For All, Midoriya's multiple quirks and One For All users, and lastly, current power levels and quirk singularity theory. The timestamp will be in the description so you can jump ahead if you want. Since most of us still don't know a single thing about the Vestige world and its history in the manga, let's just start with that. Once upon a time in a galaxy far away on the quirky planet of My Hero Academia, we saw the Vestige world in chapters 32 and 33. It was during the UA Sports Festival arc's final round. Midoriya was up against Shinzo and his quirk, Brainwashing. The latter manages to control Midoriya during the match and commands him to step out of the ring. Not like this, over in a flash. That's what Deku thought after he saw All Might standing at the back, and that is when we first saw a glimpse of the Vestige world. Midoriya saw vestiges of all the One For All users, or at least their shadows standing behind All Might in the dark. He breaks out of Shinzo's brainwashing the next second and wins the match. While this was not monumental, we understood 2 important things. There is the Vestige world through which the previous users can help or use Midoriya, at least to an extent. Whether Midoriya can or cannot willingly access this Vestige world was still unknown at this point. Second, the Vestiges were probably triggered by Shinzo's brainwashing. After the author laid the groundwork for the Vestige world, it wasn't discussed for over 3 years until chapter 192, which was also the opening of the joint training arc. Yes, I'm talking about Midoriya's dream that led to his quirk going haywire and his room getting smashed. Things became a lot clearer in this chapter because we see how One For All was actually created. It was many years ago, back when the human body had just evolved, and for the first time, people started getting strange powers. In fact, the term quirk came decades later, but that is a story for another day. Unlike today's quirk-saturated hero-villain society, people with quirks were labeled as freaks. As normal people with quirks started becoming outcasts, they thought of it as a curse. Others who were suffering wanted Quirks to take revenge against these wrongdoers. That's when he came, All for One, the devil himself. He had the best quirk. All for One. The power to give and steal quirks to and from others, entirely fitting for an evil mastermind who wants the world for himself. All for One labeled himself as the messiah of people and created his cult. He stole quirks from people who wanted to be normal and gave them to others who wanted special powers. All for One had a younger brother, Yoichi Shigaraki, who was frail and supposedly quirkless. All for One couldn't give Yoichi any quirk because of his frail body and also because Yoichi never wanted one. Unlike his evil brother, Yoichi believed in equality and democracy. One day, All for One found a power-stalking quirk, perfect for his quirkless brother, and tried to give the power forcefully to Yoichi. Unbeknownst to All for One, Yoichi had an unknown quirk all this time. He had the ability to transfer his quirk to others. When the two quirks mixed in Yoichi's body, they made, drumroll please, yes, they made One for All, a quirk that could stock power for generations and be transferred. Sure, it was weak at first, but after 8 generations of stocking power, One for All had reached its prime. That's when Yagi Toshinori, or All Might, got it. If that wasn't surprising enough, Season 5 had more in store for us. I'm talking about the scene you saw in episode 89 when Midoriya fights Monoma. His quirk goes into a frenzy again, and a lot of black tentacles come out of his hands. This caused massive destruction until Uraraka came in between to put out the fire. When she realizes that she can't get through to Deku, Gravity Hero Uravati gets Shinzo to brainwash Midoriya. You all know where this is going, right? After Shinzo's brainwashing, Midoriya ends up back in the Vestige world where he meets Daigoro Banjo, hero named Lariat. Banjo is like an MHA version of Black Clover's Magna Swing. He's a loud delinquent, but you know you could count on him when the chips are down. He reveals the truth about All for One's purpose and power. It's not just a quirk, it is its own consciousness, and it will help Midoriya in the time of need. Since Midoriya wanted to catch Monoma, he accessed Banjo's quirk, Black Whip. This statement was proven later when Midoriya accessed Nana Shimura's quirk, Float, in chapter 283, when he wanted to fly to save everyone from Shigaraki. And then, the most epic revelation happened. Yes, I'm talking about something bigger than Luke, I'm your father. Banjo tells Midoriya that he'll not only get Black Whip, but all the 7 quirks of One for All's previous users. Oh my god, I went nuts. In fact, the entire MHA community was partying like New Year's. It was one big party. We all thought the same things. Well, it's about bloody time. Midoriya has paid his dues, and now our quirkless boy wonder will be the strongest person very, very, very soon. Coming back to the Vestige, All for One explains it quite thoroughly in chapter 287. There are stories of people whose personalities and tastes change after an organ transplant. Though it sounds occult, there's plenty of supporting evidence. As for me, I'm prone to the oddest dreams from time to time. In my dreams, those whose quirks I've stolen show up to hurl abuse my way. These episodes often leave me discouraged. Am I really capable of feeling guilt for my sins like some ordinary person? But here's the strangest part. Once I get rid of a quirk, its former owner stops haunting my sleep. Bizarre, no? Especially since I'm certainly the type to hold a grudge myself. But my work with the good doctor revealed the root cause. Just as organs and cell house memories of sorts, every quirk factor contains a consciousness, the individuality of its wielder, if you will. As someone with the power to meddle with quirks themselves, I found myself in the unique position of being able to interact with those consciousnesses. My bloodkin, too, my little brother, who had the power to grant his own quirk to another, could also meddle with quirks directly. When his original quirk mixed with the power-stocking one, the resulting power became a sleeper car to carry consciousness forward to future generations. And that's precisely what the Vestige world is. A virtual place inside One for All, where the consciousnesses of the previous users remain so that they could interact with each other. Now let's talk about the part that we've all been waiting for, the 7 quirks and One for All users. I literally have goosebumps right now. Here's a look at all the users of OFA, including Midoriya. It looks like a roundtable conference, doesn't it? The first user of One for All was Yoichi Shigaraki, the good brother of the devil. He's the one sitting in the third chair from Midoriya's left. All for One locked him in a jail cell because of his reluctance to participate in his brother's world-dominating plans. Talk about abandonment issues. You know, the whole bit after this, Shigaraki got a new quirk that became One for All, but nobody knew about its existence since Yoichi was always locked. It wasn't until a couple of years later when there was a resistance movement and the future second user of One for All saved Yoichi from the shackles of his older brother. They became friends and led the fight against the villain while discovering the powers of One for All. So that's the first quirk that Midoriya got, One for All, which can stock power and get transferred to others. The quirk and name of the second user haven't been revealed in the manga either. He's the one standing right behind Yoichi at the back. And the one standing on the right is the third user whose name is also unknown. The second and third users stood at the back because they didn't deem Midoriya as a worthy successor. Since Deku replied to Nana Shimura's question about killing Shigaraki by saying that All Might has taught me to save people, not kill them. My first instinct will always be to save that little kid I saw. Tenko Shimura, and I'll only fight if necessary. This leads to an emotional debate where all the users accept Midoriya for being a true hero, except the second and third users who believed it to be a childish fantasy. The second user thinks it's absurd to sympathize with the evil of Shigaraki's level, but Yoichi thinks differently. He pointed out how One for All was actually born. One for All was created when my brother gave me the quirk, but it wasn't born until you extended your hand and saved me, the younger brother of your mortal enemy. The first person cultivates the power and then passes it to another. The next refines it and passes it on again. In this way, those crying out to be saved and those with brave and true hearts link to form a crystalline network of power. That's One for All. The second user realizes how his heroic side might have been overburdened by the ongoing war, and he accepts Midoriya as a worthy successor along with the third user. The third user's quirk is Fajin, which in Chinese is the act of discharging power. This quirk lets Midoriya build up massive kinetic energy and discharge it in one shot. Deku only got his quirk recently in chapter 313, when he used the quirk to jump and tore through a multi-story building at a speed much faster than his maximum output. He did that to beat Lady Nagant, the best sniper in the MHA universe. And that's just Midoriya using it for the first time with no practice at all, which means tearing through buildings is just the beginning. Ooh la la. In fact, he uses it again in chapter 314 to save Chisaki from Lady Nagant's fastest shot and even manages to circle back and capture the villain. Yes, Midoriya is now officially faster than All Might was in his prime. The third user then passed One for All to the fourth, Hikage Shinomori, whose original quirk was Danger Sense. He's sitting on the leftmost chair right where Midoriya is standing. Danger Sense allows Deku to sense danger around him by causing a stabbing sensation in his body. It took a massive toll on Deku when he used it for the first time in chapter 295, where he suddenly woke up after being left unconscious in the battle. But there's more to Shinomori than just a relay runner. He realized that the quirk doesn't have enough power to take on All for One yet, so he decided to hide in the mountains and stockpile the quirk. There, he lived his life as a monk, training every day, trying to stock as much power as he could. Shinomori dies of old age at 40 after keeping the quirk for 18 whole years, which is only second to All Might's tenure. Hold on a sec, did I say he died of old age at 40? That can't be right, except that it is, and I have a good explanation for it. But you must know the other members of the Round Table Conference before we come to that. Shinomori gave the quirk to the fifth user, Banjo, who is sitting at Midoriya's right. You already know about him. Banjo then passed on the quirk to N, the sixth user, who is sitting on his right. N's quirk is called Smokescreen, that allows the user to generate smoke from their body to blind their enemies while being able to track everyone's precise location. N gave his quirk to the seventh user, Nana Shimura, who had the quirk Float. Nana Shimura passed it to Yagi Toshinori, aka All Might, who kept the quirk for the longest time, 40 years. He is also the only user to fight with All for One with only one quirk and leave him in a near-death state. Well, just as Bakugo said, no wonder all users had average quirks at best, and there's a good reason for that. All the users of One for All so far have been chosen out of necessity on the battlefield because All for One was constantly hunting for the quirk. But when you put all of them together, they're the best support quirks to have. Midoriya now has the ability to fly, use long-range weapons, spidey sense, create a smoke screen, make outbursts of kinetic energy, and a massive physical buff thanks to One for All. Stanley and Jack Kirby must be turning in their graves right now. Although two big questions are still unanswered. One, how come the fourth user died of old age at 40? And why is All Might in this astral form? In fact, why is he on the round table at all? He's neither dead, nor did he have a quirk. Without a quirk factor, his consciousness couldn't have been embedded in the original power-stocking quirk. To know that, you'll need to know the Quirk Singularity theory, which takes us to the final part of this video. The Quirk Singularity theory, put forward by Dr. Garaki, states that the human race is constantly evolving, and there will come a time when the quirks will be so evolved that the human body or the vessel wouldn't be able to contain them. This led to his research about the artificial enhancement or nomification of the human body. One for All is actually the biggest example of it. The quirk is so powerful that Midoriya nearly destroyed his body when he used it for the first time after months of training. According to All Might, Midoriya would have died instantly if he had used the quirk without building up his body first. On top of this, the first 7 users had a quirk of their own, which was later explained by Yoichi in chapter 305. If you think of the human body as a vessel, then it's already filled to an extent with the user's base quirk. When you add another quirk in that vessel, it starts overflowing, and when you restrict that overflow, the vessel will break. This was never noticed because all the other users of One for All died young, hunted by All for One. It was only Shinomori, the 4th user, who lived his life stockpiling the quirk for 18 years and died. He died of old age at 40 due to his body or vessel deteriorating faster than expected. Does this answer all your questions in one shot? Not really. Let's take it step by step. First, All Might was able to keep the quirk for 40 years and survive because his vessel was initially empty, which was then filled by the quirk, One for All. In fact, he would have been in his prime if not for the injury. Second, due to the same reason, All Might was able to draw out One for All's true power. This is why he was the strongest user. He unlocked One for All's full potential. Yoichi even claims that Yagi made the quirk truly his own, and that's when his consciousness got embedded in One for All. This is why his astral form is on the round table even though he's alive. Moreover, he broke the Quirk Singularity threshold of One for All. It's because of All Might that Deku was able to get all these extra quirks in the first place. Now, it's time for the final reveal. The current MHA verse is so quirk saturated that there are no quirkless users left, like at all. One for All, on the other hand, has evolved to a new level, so much that it can't be transferred to people with existing quirks. This means Izuku Midoriya is the final user of One for All. If he doesn't defeat All for One, it's back to the evil era. Kaboom! Just to end the video on a brighter note, this means if the quirk was transferred to Mirio Togata, like Sir Night Eye, and frankly all of us wanted in Season 4, our lovely Lemillion would have died. Well, it turned out fine. That's it for today, folks. Thanks for coming and watching this. I'll see you in the next one.